Okay, I believe this time it should work. Let me check and see what's going on with my YouTube. All right, let me see. Let me see. Guys, hold on one sec. All right, let me see if I can comment down below. All right, more, that's fine. So, for those of you watching, this is going to be a conversation about the Canelo allegedly ducking Terence Bud Crawford conversation. All right. So, person joining us today says Bud gonna stop Canelo. Well, we'll see over what he has to say. It is going to be a little bit weird in terms of the volume. It's going to kind of replay at times, so it might take me a bit to respond. But let's see overall what the man has to say, and I'm gonna bring up my points. He's gonna bring up his. Anyways, Mr. Bud, go ahead and ask your first question when you're ready, man. Let me see if I actually. Ah, there we go. Add you to the stage right now.
Yeah, there I go. Salute, man. Thanks for having me. You can hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
yeah. Yeah, man. What's going on?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. It's just repeating a little bit, so it might take me a bit to respond.
Okay. Wow, you got the YouTube open still? Like in another tab?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, there we go. Let me
Okay.
see if I can. Okay, yep, yep. All right, better now.
Okay, cool. So this your first time like having somebody on live?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well now you know how.
Thank you.
So yeah, man. My name first, it used to be Bud Gonna Stop Spence, like a year and a half before the fight was made.
Hmm.
Until the fight happened, then it actually happened. So then I changed it. I was assuming Canelo was gonna take the fight, but he ended up not taking it.
Hmm.
So like yeah, first like what I was saying with your videos, like I agree with you on all those other channels you were talking about and
Yeah.
naming like most of them, but even as far as like the LDBC, they are, I would say like I was they I would say like you said they were pro black, like they pretend to be pro black. That's what they try to be, but really they're not. They're still biased within that community. And I'm about equality. I don't
Mm.
judge stuff about, what I'm saying, whatever somebody's nationality is, but they still pick and choose because, they support Devin Haney, not Shakur Stevenson. They
Hmm.
just, they just slander him the same as they support Errol Spence, not
Yeah.
Terence Crawford. They slandered him for months, for years, actually.
Yeah.
So they're definitely not pro-black, but they attempt to be.
Well, to bring up actually that first point, I think that the reason, because this has been brought up to me before, the LDBC, I do find them like and I still do find them to be biased, but I do find them to be better commentators than Dante or Aki TV or Eagle because they have
Yeah,
even a little bit more bias. However, the reason why I've also stated them to be a pro-black cult, as you've heard in my videos before, is because I think the main reason why they support the PBC is because, of course, it's owned by that of Al Haymon. And I think that's the reason overall why they support such black fighters so much, like Wilder, Spence, Tank Davis, and they're usually less able to criticize them, at least at certain times. At least certain channels are, like Boxing Ego, for example. That's the reason why I've always stated that point.
yeah, right. I agree with that, but I still, when they, like I said, they're still not pro-black because they go against other fighters that they don't like. But I would say they're pro PBC, if anything.
I
That,
think that it's like a mix of both, but I understand what you
yeah,
mean. It also depends on the channel. But
yeah.
also, and like not to rush you or anything, man, but
No,
like
I got time.
just
No.
the questions overall. Like, what's one question over that you wanted to ask me about the Canelo and Crawford situation?
Um, I wanted to ask you, like, cause it was when you brought up Charlo, when he fought Charlo.
Yeah.
Um, I forgot exactly what you said, but my thing with Charlo is, like, why do you think Canelo chooses not to fight Crawford?
Well, I think that it's kind of a very similar reason why Crawford don't decide to fight Ennis. I think that when you talk about accomplishing something more in your career, I just think that both of those fights for those gentlemen, I think that for Crawford's example, for example, I think that Boots is a very young and dangerous contender, and I don't know why do you want to fight him right now when you're almost getting to 37 years old, and you could win even more belts at the 154-pound weight class, and that'd probably do more for your legacy in terms of winning in more weight classes. For Canelo, it's very difficult. It's even more difficult in my view because Crawford, I do think that everyone looks at him as a threat almost no matter the weight class. But if I think Canelo basically said it best that if Crawford moves up all the way to that weight class, it's a lose lose situation for Canelo because he's not really going to get any credit if he wins that fight because Crawford, of course, would be smaller than him. And if he loses, then of course it's going to be, looked at as a terrible loss. So I think Canelo just doesn't look at it for anything in it for him. And I think in order for Canelo to fight you, there does have to be something in it for him.
Right. Okay. I understand what you're saying. I've heard that also. But as far as Boots, um, obviously he's nowhere near. He doesn't have nowhere near the amount of accolades that Crawford has. So Crawford fighting him is completely different than Canelo fighting Crawford. I mean, yeah, Crawford, because they're both. Most people ask Crawford is number one pound for pound, but not,
Hmm.
it's either Crawford or Canelo for everybody, pretty much. So that's one thing. But the reason Crawford, like, that Crawford, they already offered a fight to Boots on BLK Prime, or no? You don't
Well,
know.
I've heard about that. I don't know really how real those things were. I didn't really do the research on it. I would have to see what Jerome Butsena said on the situation.
Well, he said a couple of different things, but the last thing he said, he just completely changed up and said he said yes to the fight, but then he never heard back from them. But then his dad said he talked to Espinosa, and Blue Blood was partnering with them, so they
Hmm.
actually did offer them the fight. Steven Espinosa said they offered him the fight, but he didn't. He told them that Crawford isn't specifically signed to BLK, so why should they be involved in this and that? So the fight was offered, but Boziena said they turned it down because they were loyal to Showtime,
Okay.
even though they weren't signed with paperwork. Just his loyalty cut off his word is why they turned it down. So
I definitely could see the point there, and that probably would be more on the fault of Boots Ennis. However, what I will say is that at the moment, Boots does appear ready to fight Crawford, and Crawford seems more like a free agent. When I believe back then he was a little bit more at the top ranked drama, and BLK Prime, of course, was not a network that did very well for Crawford because that Avanesian fight, of course, didn't do very well in terms of the numbers. But I believe that overall, that's once again with a lot of these channels that I watch and I review if they are going to give criticism to Canelo for not fighting David Benavidez, which I think is somewhat fair, then I also believe that Crawford should get criticism for fighting Boots. Not necessarily maybe in your situation, but when you talk about these other channels that basically state why is Canelo not fighting the elite black and Latino fighters of his weight division, then in my view, you would have to criticize Crawford for not fighting the most elite black fighter around. Pretty much that's the biggest threat to him because I don't think anyone at 154 would be a main threat to him right now. I think Ennis would be the biggest threat.
Yeah, but look, I wasn't finished though.
Oh, okay.
So after that, and the whole IBF situation when Vi- uh, Virgil Ortiz left the IBF rankings,
Mm-hmm.
and um so Boots was next in line. No
Yeah.
one else was there. So instead of him being the mandatory, he left no the WBO. He left the WBO rankings after Ortiz, knowing that he was next. So you deliberately left when you could have been his mandatory. So that's what Crawford meant when he said he had two chances. But anyway, besides all that, the last thing that Crawford said, he said he won't. They're going to make excuses, say he was too young, this and that. But if they want him to fight him, he posted this. I don't know if you've seen it or not. He said, just put the money up and he'll fight him. That's it. Just he got to get paid for the fight. So at the time, Showtime went out of business. Crawford, neither one of them had a network, and no one had anyone to put the money up. So that's the last thing Crawford said: put the money up or stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason he wouldn't. He said he don't care about the accolades or anything, but he'll fight him. But he just got to get paid for it. So no one has put the money up yet. But now that Boots just got signed with DAZN, now they have financial backing and they have a network. But now they're talking. Boots going to say, "Oh, Crawford said he wasn't interested in me." No, the last thing he said is put the money up, so they can make him an offer. And so Eddie said that if you want to fight, Crawford is going to want to get paid. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you have Saudi Arabia backing you, and so hold on, let me finish this real quick.
Yeah, yeah,
He,
yeah.
he knows Saudi they'll back him and pay Crawford what he wants, but he didn't say that. He still made a 3-fight, 18-month plan for Boots that didn't include Crawford. But the last thing that was said that came out yesterday or the day before yesterday, Turkey Al Sheikh said he plans on the fights that he want to make next this year. He wants to make the Crawford and the Boots fight and the Crawford and Canelo fight. So
Mm-hmm.
they have the network, the zone, and they also have the money. However much Crawford wants, and they called Crawford. He's making his U.S. debut as Crawford
Mm-hmm.
with Crawford. So the money is there. So the fight should be Boots fight in June. Crawford is fighting in August. After that, they should be fighting each other. It shouldn't be no excuses. And Crawford is willing to do that. So he's ready to fight Boots. That's my whole point.
If maybe. I think that, of course, the Boots turning it down thing, I would have to do more research into it, but it sounds like you know what you're talking about on the situation. Boots, in my view, now he seems ready to fight Crawford, and of course, Crawford said it was a lose-lose situation for him, which of course has received him a whole lot of criticism. I think that Canelo and Crawford are in a very similar boat, fighting their particular opponents with Benavidez and Boots, and I think they both deserve to get paid. That's why
Yeah.
I never had a problem with Crawford not fighting Boots, at least at the current moment in time, even if he didn't fight him, because at 154, I believe he could accomplish more. But yeah, if you have anything else to bring up about that conversation, go ahead. And then I'm going to bring up also a conversation about the Canelo Jamal Charlo fight. If you have anything else to say about that, feel free.
Yeah, the Boots, so we're gonna if they don't fight after their next fight, then it's gonna be clear that somebody's ducking the fight.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing I gotta say about that. But we could go to Crawford and Canelo
Okay.
now. Yeah.
So one point that I'm going to bring up really quickly, because I think a lot of people have a question about what I state here, and certain people overall, they may think that I have biased commentary for this, because they're wondering why are you giving Canelo almost full credit for the Jamel Charlo win because he moved up 2 weight classes. Well, the reason overall is because, and some people also would ask, well, how come Canelo can fight Jamel Charlo, but there's nothing in it for him for Crawford because he moved up Charlo 2 weight classes. Crawford, in my view, is a legitimate welterweight. And when you see him rehydrate, he does rehydrate at a legitimate 60 pounds. Jermell Charlo is a decent amount bigger than what Crawford is. Charlo is a guy, I don't really remember his exact height and his length, but he's about 5'11, anywhere from 5'11 to 6'1, around the same size as his brother, Jamal Charlo. That guy, and even in the fight against Canelo, he rehydrated, I believe, a bit heavier than Canelo. Now, of course, there's a difference between ballooning up a little bit more in weight than what you usually do, fighting a bigger guy. But Jamel clearly is a bigger guy for his stature. Him and Crawford are really not comparable in size. So I wanted to state that because a certain amount of people They were wondering about that question. Jamel Charlo, in my view, the reason why, in my view, that in the size is not a complete excuse is because Charlo really could have fought at the middleweight division earlier. Kind of like Jamal Charlo, he could easily be fighting at 168 pounds, even though he's never really fought there consistently throughout his career.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was the point that I wanted to bring up
Uh,
about that.
so yeah, well, that's why I wanted to talk to you because I think completely different than most of these other people, and I agree with you. I give Canelo complete credit for beating Charlo.
Hmm.
I never said, "Oh, you brought him up. He was smart." No, my thing is Charlo. He's the one that didn't give an effort. He wasn't even trying to fight. Like
Yep,
he went there just to get paid,
I
you know.
agree.
And I felt like they put that fight in there too, as PBC was trying to block Crawford from fighting Charlo next, and getting undisputed. But Charlo didn't give an effort, so I never blamed him for the loss. I gave Canelo his credit. But
Yeah.
my thing is, Canelo was willing to go to 160 for Spence.
Hmm.
Also, before he fought Charlo, he said that Crawford can beat everybody from 154 to 160. That includes Charlo. So in Canelo's opinion, Crawford is better than Charlo, and he will beat him. And
Hmm.
and I agree with that too. So, and one more thing before I get to my main point is when they asked Canelo, will he go to 160 and fight Crawford? He said, no, I can't go down and weight. Even though he would have did it for Spence, he said, I can't go down and weight. So no, I wouldn't fight him at
Hmm.
that weight. But they was like, what if he come to 168? He said, well, yeah, if he come to 168, yeah, I will fight him. Why not?
Hmm.
So, because at that time, Crawford said he wouldn't go to 168. But once Crawford beat Spence and said he'll go to 168 and fight Canelo. He said he'll fight the winner of Jamel and Canelo. He wants the winner at
Hmm.
168. Then that's when Canelo all of a sudden said after he beat Charlo, he said, "Well, no, he's too small. I wouldn't get credit." But you said if he come to 168, you'll fight him, and you willing to fight Charlo, no matter worrying about getting credit or not getting credit, knowing that you said Crawford will beat Charlo. So you know Crawford is the better fighter, but you're willing to fight the lesser fighter no matter how much he comes up in weight, but not the better fighter. You see what I'm saying? So is he deliberately avoiding Crawford, making excuses not to fight him? It's
I
like clear.
what I'll state is this. I do, and I got a couple comments in the comment section. Sorry if I can't respond to everybody, because of course I'm trying to, do the debate here. But so a couple people said overall that at one time Canelo said that the Errol Spence fight was pointless. Personally, I don't remember, but I do remember the Errol Spence versus Canelo fight being talked about. And I think that when you talk about something like this, I think that Canelo obviously does realize the possible threat that Crawford could be. But I also think that, once again, when you're talking about a fighter that's about three weight classes lower at this time, I think Canelo's getting older. And I think that he doesn't really feel like draining himself to 160 as much anymore. And on top of that, I think this main factor also has to be talked about. Terence Crawford, even for the absolute talent that he is, he's never been a super great seller. And this has been proven pretty much by his pay per view sales, because even the fight against Errol Spence, it really only did about 800,000 pay per view buys. So I think Canelo would probably be more willing to fight against Errol Spence Jr. when that would have been a mega fight because of Errol Spence, the Texas native, with Canelo, of course, having the Mexican fan base down there. And of course, possibly some other things. Jamel Charlo, I believe, also being a Houston native, and that fight also doing big, overall. Although I can't remember if they had that fight in Vegas or Texas. But I think that when it comes to Crawford, before people think about fighting him, they also think about the possible sales that he does, because Crawford, I would not necessarily say is a big seller. So I think that also might be a part of the reason why Canelo believes that Crawford is going to have to do a little bit more in order to get that fight, especially at a higher weight class.
I mean, see, sales only come up when it's certain with certain fighters. Like he didn't care about his sales with Ryder, Yildirim. Even Munguia never been on pay per view before. Crawford's his highest pay per view now is 650,000. That's what spent. So the sale, that's just another reason. So like some people saying sales, like now you're saying that, but he literally said because he wouldn't get credit, but
Well,
he
that is a
never
part of
worried
it too, I
about.
think too. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just, but it's plenty of people he never worried about getting credit for that he brought up in weight. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm,
it's plenty of people who never sold pay per view that he fought. If Canelo is the name, so you're going to sell regardless. You're the face of boxing, so of course you're going to sell against the pound for pound best fighter. Like that's really not a reason. But when you really look at it, when everybody asking who wins that fight, professional boxers and analysts, a lot of people pick Crawford. So it's not a mystery that Canelo, and everybody knows that he has a chance of winning. Like a lot of Canelo fans say, "Oh, um, Canelo would make Crawford take a knee like Charlo." They just say what he would do, but in actuality, it's not that simple. If Canelo thought it was that simple, to me, he would take the fight. But when you have people like Teddy Atlas and Roy Jones, Tony Tarver, all these people picking Crawford to win, this is the only fighter in history that somebody picked a person from coming from the lower weight class to beat the dominant fighter in the higher weight
Hmm.
class. So Canelo know all the same thing, and only thing that Canelo has over Crawford would be the weight. We don't really know how Crawford's power would translate, but we can assume. But everything else, Crawford got a higher IQ, more speed, better footwork, better defense, higher punch accuracy. He got every advantage. Even he got the reach advantage over Canelo. Only thing he has is size, if that's even the case when he get there. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, to bring up, are you like, am I able to talk, or do you have anything else to
no, yeah,
add?
you go
Okay,
ahead. You
okay,
go
okay,
ahead.
okay. Well, first of all, when you talk about skill versus skill, I think that Crawford, when you compare them, I definitely think he has the better feet than Canelo. Defensive wise, I actually believe Canelo's the better fighter over Crawford, because Crawford, besides the Errol Spence Jr. fight, he showed me quite a bit that he sometimes is a bit too hittable. But I do give him credit for the Spence fight because he showed up pretty good defensively in that fight. But like I said, overall, with the Crawford situation, I do think that Canelo realizes the threat that Terence Crawford could potentially be. But I think Canelo looks at it and says, I'm already not getting a lot of credit for the opponents that I'm facing at 168 or at 160. Why would I get any credit for fighting possibly a very dangerous fighter like that of a Terence Bud Crawford? I think Canelo believes that he could win that fight, but I also think he believes there's about a 10 to 20% chance that he could lose because of Crawford's skill set and his power. And I think he says there has to be something more in it for me in terms of the ticket sales. And I think that it's just a little bit. I think the risk outweighs overall the reward, and I don't blame him. And I think Crawford looks at it right now the same as Duran Butsenis.
So okay, I got two. What percentage do you give them in a fight between Crawford and Canelo?
I would give Canelo Alvarez probably an 80% chance if he's not.
Wow.
Yeah. Crawford, in my view, is a great fighter, but it depends which version of Canelo I see. Canelo's been aging for the past few years, so maybe. But Canelo is just, he has a great chin. He has excellent, excellent power, and he's got excellent boxing IQ. And I think that Canelo would clearly be the best, the smartest, and the greatest fighter that Crawford had ever fought. And on top of that, the biggest. So I just don't think that Canelo would really get much credit, especially from these channels. And I think that's what Canelo's really looking at as. He's basically stating that, people, when I fought Caleb Plant, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, they just said I fought these weak European white boys with no power. When I fought Danny Jacobs, it was the rehydration clause, or he already got beat. When I fought Ersani Lara, it was a robbery. When I fought Golovkin, he was apparently old, So I think Canelo takes a look at it
I
and
mean,
says,
yeah, Crawford get the same type of stuff when he beat people. But I want to ask you one more question. But first,
sure, sure.
I want to respond to the person said nobody ducking Crawford. Then if Canelo beats Crawford, y'all gonna cry and moan like y'all are with Haney. So first, I picked Ryan Garcia to win. I was one of the few people on
Interesting.
YouTube, so I don't judge based off color for the person
Yeah.
who said that. I picked Ryan Garcia to win, so I'm definitely not moaning about the Haney win because I chose Ryan Garcia. But I was gonna ask you, so but Turkey Al Sheik is gonna make he's gonna try to make the Crawford and Canelo fight. So therefore, whatever is going to be something in it for Canelo because he don't have to worry about pay-per-view sales because he's going to get paid whenever
Yeah.
he wants. So if Canelo don't take the fight, then he just is. Hey, what can it be? You know what I'm saying?
I think that there definitely could be something in it money wise, especially if Alishi gets involved, the Turkish guy, I believe, or the
Yeah, he said it. He said he was. Though he said he want to make Crawford Canelo.
However, I do think that the legacy also is an issue, and I think Canelo realizes that he would get crucified. Canelo, when you talk about guys like Canelo, Mayweather, Crawford, fighters that at one time could have debatably been the best of their sport, they're almost always in a lose-lose situation. So I kind of seen the same thing with Mayweather, where basically he would never get any credit overall for his wins. I think Canelo, especially because he's the bigger star comparatively to the two between himself and Crawford, I think he's always kind of in a lose-lose situation because he has more criticizers. So I think when he looks at Crawford, he says, "This dude is somewhat of a threat." And he's moving up three weight classes. I'm not moving down to 160 to fight this guy. He's like, why would I fight this guy when there's nothing in it for me? I just don't think there's enough in terms of legacy when I could fight Jaime Munguia, earn a decent amount of money, fight some of these other guys. So I definitely agree with you stating that Canelo definitely knows who Crawford is. He knows that he's somewhat of a threat, but I can't state that Canelo would be necessarily ducking turns, but Crawford, if Crawford maybe was a 154 pounder, I would get it. But
I mean, he's fighting at 154 in August, so
he is, yes, against that one Uzbekistan fighter, I believe. I think
yeah.
that if Crawford, in my view, Canelo would deserve more criticism for possibly not taking this fight. If Crawford were to unify or get a lot of titles at 154, maybe then go up to 160, and then if Canelo still doesn't want to fight him, then I'd get it because then it would be more plausible. Because I think at this point right now, Canelo would just really get the littlest amount of credit for beating that of a Terence Bud Crawford. I don't think he'd get much credit because if he does beat Terence Crawford, do we automatically count Canelo Alvarez as clearly the best of his generation? In my view, they
I
both.
mean, whoever win will get, like, okay, like, look, who's critic, like, when we talk about credit, who is criticizing Canelo for credit? Listen, look at the people in the chat, the people on YouTube.
Mhm.
Everybody gives Canelo credit for everybody. Nobody's
Well,
saying, oh, I never
w-
heard somebody discredit him for Charlo. Only people I hear is like when people say, oh, he didn't get credit for Charlo. Who didn't give him credit? Everybody that I talked to, they said Charlo didn't fight. I never heard a person say, "Oh, he brought Charlo." Well, I never heard that once. But people who support Canelo use that as an excuse. But nobody ever said that. Canelo get credit for everybody that he fights, even when some people feel is don't deserve. He has so many fans, so it's like that's just something to say to avoid certain fights because he get credit for anybody he fights. Like the
well,
Yadira fight, Rocky Fielding, those people didn't do anything in the sport, but nobody talks about that. Like, oh, he don't get credit. He just picks and chooses his mandatories. He fights who we want to fight. They said if he don't fight when Crawford first said he wanted to fight Canelo next, they said, oh well, Mauricio Sulaiman said, well, Benavidez is the mandatory. We're gonna strip him on a belt if he don't fight him. So
mhm,
that's what blocked Crawford. Everybody like, well, he got to fight Benavidez next. Forget Crawford. But when it came to time for it, they never stripped him. They didn't force him to fight Benavidez, and he's still doing whatever he want to do. It's just like
mhm.
he does what he wants, so he could fight him and not worry about credit. To me, it's just an excuse not to fight.
I somewhat understand what you're saying, but I do have to disagree with you to a slight degree. The reason why I state that is because these channels, for example, that I all review, they all say the same thing that I've seen about Canelo, which is that he, almost every time he fights somebody, there's an excuse. Like I said, it's like the Floyd Mayweather Jr. effect. When you're looked at in that position, a lot of people, of course, they love you because you have a lot of fans and he's very popular, but a lot of people will try to tear you down as well. And Canelo, he does read comments, and he has probably more fans than what he does have haters, but he does have a lot of people that crucify him. And there was a lot of people, not just overall these LDBC new media channels. There was also Mexican fighters criticizing him for the Charlo move. Certain fighters have criticized him, especially Juan Manuel Marquez. I believe even certain other Mexican legends have stated stuff as well. So Canelo is receiving a little bit more criticism than what I believe you think.
Yeah, I just I think everybody would be okay with that fight though. I
Yeah.
just
Well, I don't know. To me, the fight would have to be it would have to make more sense if Crawford won titles actually at 154. And I'm talking about multiple titles. I think that the perfect segue, if Jamel Charlo is the same, would it be were to be to have Terence Crawford versus Jamel Charlo, maybe even at 160. Like if you can make that that'd be a very particularly interesting fight. I don't know if he's going to take any fights at 160, Crawford to get to Canelo because the only fighter that I really see there that's a main threat to anybody is Janabek. And I'll tell you this,
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if Crawford would beat Janabek. Janabek, in my view, and Crawford's a phenomenal fighter, but Janabek is extremely quick. He's extremely powerful. In my view, he'd even get a challenge to Canelo. So it's just a tricky situation in my view. And I think that if Crawford is going to get that fight, that he's going to have to do more at 154, possibly 160. And I understand Canelo's viewpoint because there is a lot of people overall that would not give him credit for that fight, even though they try to egg him on into that fight. And I'll bring up another example real quick as well. Like these same channels, by the way, and you say that it's only these channels, but keep in mind that these channels also represent hundreds of thousands of people because those are the amount of followers that they have. So a long time ago, when Vasily Lomachenko was looked at as getting up there in the number one pound for pound debate, they were all debating about how, he should face Guillermo Rigondeaux. And to be fair, most people, including myself, gave Lomachenko credit for fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux. But a lot of the times, especially Aki TV, Dante, a lot of these other guys, they said, oh, well, afterwards, he only beat him so bad because of a year layoff and because he was two weight classes smaller. And this would be three, weight classes. Now, Canelo, in my view, really is a natural middleweight. He's not really a 168 pounder because he rehydrates a bit heavier, but he's only 5'7" with the 7'1".
Exactly, and that's the part why that's the whole reason that Crawford wants that fight. And that's, it's like some people saying right now Crawford turned down Benavidez. It's a different dynamic with Benavidez and Canelo. Canelo's not a natural 168 pounder, so that's why the fight is more makeable than Benavidez or anybody else at 168. Crawford don't want to campaign at 168, but he'll fight Canelo.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you mean. That also someone also brought up a very decent point about Crawford potentially fighting Benavidez. That if you want to take opportunities away from other 168 pounders, then you should at least be able to willingly fight possibly someone else. That's I would definitely understand Crawford not fighting Benavidez, but I get
Yeah.
certain people's points bringing that up because Benavidez is pretty much a light heavyweight to a cruiserweight, so I get it. But I kind of do get that point though because there is exceptions for exceptional people. Of course, Crawford is an exceptional fighter, so it would make sense why Canelo and Crawford should make the fight. I just can't say Canelo right now was ducking Crawford when he just hasn't done anything at 154 yet. They're separated by three weight classes, and I understand Canelo's viewpoint that right now there's just not enough in it for him. I think that more than likely, if Crawford accomplishes a lot at 154, maybe even a bit at 160, then I think the fight will be very plausible, and that's when Canelo should jump on that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the word I'm not ducking is not the word I would say. I would
Okay.
just say avoiding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
I know what you mean.
that can be everybody perception and things are different. So I wouldn't say ducking, but I would just say he kind of avoided the Crawford fight after saying you will fight him if he come to 168. Then said when he said he'll come, because he said when Crawford was like, he not gonna fight at 68. That's when for him to come down. That's when Canelo was like, well, I wouldn't fight him. I wouldn't come down, but I'll fight him if he can in 168. But
Hmm.
once Crawford said he'd go to 68, then Canelo said he wouldn't get credit. So that's what made me feel like he was avoiding him. But I just feel
Yeah,
like with Turkey getting involved, it's for the fights between Boots and Crawford and Canelo is like it's going to either be made or it's going to be clear that somebody don't want the fight and it's
hmm
coming to an end soon. I want to see both fights.
yeah, for sure. I'd probably use the word overall, just like Canelo. I wouldn't say quite avoiding either. I would state overall that I kind of understand your point there. I would just state overall that he's waiting for it until something is a little bit more bigger in it for him. Because I don't think he would mind that fight, but I think that he realizes that right now it's just the right time. But I think that, of course, we agree and disagree on certain things about that. I think we've mainly got that out of the way. I think the
Yeah.
next part of the conversation, if you're up for it overall, is to talk about because both of these guys are all-time great fighters. What do you think over who do you think has the better resume in terms of the better opponents between these two fighters?
Um, I would say Crawford accomplished more than Canelo did.
See,
But
I would
like
disagree there, but I'll have to hear your point.
when you looking at resumes, like a lot like if I ask you the best wins on Canelo resume, a lot of those fighters are going to be people that came up in weight and different things like that.
Hmm.
But where Crawford started from, like a lot of people not realizing, like when he fought Gamboa, him and Gamboa had the same record, the same amount of knockouts. Gamboa was the favorite in that fight. They thought he
Hmm.
was going to lose that fight, and he dominated him. So what he accomplished coming all the way up, being a champion for as long as he have, the knockout streak he's on from 2016, being undisputed in two weight classes, Ring Magazine, everything he accomplished. I think he accomplished more than Canelo, but Canelo did a lot too. But I don't think he did as much. I think Crawford is more accomplished than Canelo. That's
Okay.
why he's already casted for the Hall of Fame.
I
But
think that both are first ballot Hall of Famers. I think that um, both are all time great fighters. But when you talk about resume and accomplishments, I have to go with Canelo. Now, accomplishments, it's close, but resume, I don't think it is particularly close. And I'll tell you why. Now, actually, it's interesting. You brought
I,
up a
I,
point
I
that
can agree with that though. But go
the the
ahead.
the the point that you actually brought up about a minute ago, and I'm not sure what exactly you meant by it, but you said a lot of the opponents that Canelo fought were coming up from 160. Well, a lot of people bring up that point that he's only moving up a fighter one weight class. So I think that's another reason why Canelo's a bit tentative to fight Crawford, especially when it would be a three weight class difference, because people would bring up that point. But yeah, when you talk about the resume, just for clarification for the commenters right now or for the watchers, yeah, Canelo, in my view, has almost a dozen A grade names on his resume. Jamel Charlo, I count as an A grade win. Danny Jacobs, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, I count as one because he won the Super Series tournament, I believe, in that weight class. Gennady Golovkin, Lara, Cotto. In my view, Kovalev, even though he was a little bit more wore down, but I still find that as an A grade win. And I'm sure there's another one that I'm not remembering at the current moment in time, but he has about nine A grade wins.
Yeah,
Now,
those are big wins. He got a nice resume.
I agree. I will state this about Crawford. I think that because you probably haven't watched my videos in the past too much, I did criticize a little bit of Terence Bud Crawford's resume, and I don't think it was completely his fault. Yes, I do think he could have signed with the PBC and Showtime earlier, so I'm not going to completely elicit him from blame. But see, the question is about Crawford is really also how great his resume actually is. Of course, he got the win over Errol Spence. He deserves a lot of credit for that. I've heard a lot of people try to make excuses for it. I didn't personally bite on it because Errol Spence looked great in his last fight against Ugas.
Mhm.
So the year layoff to me wasn't enough of an excuse. But when you take a look at the other parts of his resume, I think that it does lack a little bit in terms of an elite resume. I think he has Spence on there. I think he has Porter. I think he has Gamboa. And I think he has Postal. I think those are probably his four greatest wins. I don't see a whole lot of other great wins on his record, at least against great champions.
See, with it's like he beat a lot of undefeated fighters. It's like when he fights people, they don't look as good after he fight them. So it makes people like, oh, they weren't that good. But he fights whoever it is. That's the whole reason I think I want Canelo and Crawford to fight, and I want Boots and Crawford to fight, so people can see. Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, Boots can beat anybody on Crawford resume," but
Mm,
then when he beat Boots, then what can you say? So it's just that's why I really want the Canelo fight too, so they can
yeah.
just fight for whoever, just for pound, number one. Whoever win that fight can get that title. But
I
they
well,
both Hall of Famers.
yeah, no, they'd be a both. I think we agree actually on a lot of stuff, about 75% of things. But what I will state is this: when it comes to Crawford defeating these undefeated guys, I don't think that just because a person is undefeated that always makes him elite. I never thought Jose Benavidez was an elite fighter. In fact, a lot of people thought that early on in his career that he got a robbery decision over Mauricio Herrera. I remember that fight. Aegis Velasquez was a guy that he's an Olympian, but he was never really looked at as super elite. He was a guy that I believe had a draw over a fighter that can't remember his name. I think his name was like Jesse James or something, but a fighter that I believe had, wasn't really that great in terms of his boxing ability. I don't believe that a lot of the fighters that Crawford beat throughout his career, I would classify as complete A grade. Even some of the champions he beat. I never thought Ricky Burns was necessarily an A grade champion. Postal, debatably, because he had the win over Matisse. But Julius Ndango, I don't believe was A grade. Like I said, I think he has about four clear A grade wins on his resume, and it's not to discredit him. I just think it's the way overall that things were in his weight class.
Yeah, and when he fought Postal, though, he went up. He wasn't even supposed to fight him. Like he went up a whole weight class to fight him because his fighter pulled out and Postal fighter pulled out. So that was what was amazing about that fight. But
Well,
also,
Crawford for his first fight actually fought Thomas Delorme for the Vegan WBA title. That's what I remember. I believe
yeah,
them
and
setting that up.
Delorme was 24-0 with like 19 or 20 knockouts.
I no,
And
actually, he got knocked out once, I believe,
look,
by an Argentine
20
fighter.
24-1, and after Crawford beat him, he lost like six straight fights. But he was at the top of his game when he fought
Hmm.
Crawford. But I
Yeah.
want to say too about Jose Benavidez. Crawford people could say whatever they want about Benavidez, but nobody ever dropped him or stopped him except Crawford. He the only person to drop him or stop him in his whole career. That says a lot about Crawford, you
That
know?
no, it definitely does. I think that it does show the danger of Crawford. But the question is, if you put these fighters up against the likes of Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, and Errol Spence, do they really win against those fighters? I'm not really quite sure if they do, in my view, because I don't think they're on the same caliber as those A grade level champions. And I think Crawford would beat every single one of those fighters that I just mentioned, by the way. But I
Me too.
so just because he makes someone look better in terms of a performance, in my view, doesn't always mean they're an A grade level fighter. Like Rolly Romero, for example, Isaac just completely dismantled Rolly Romero, and
Yeah,
Javante had some trouble with him. But to me, it doesn't matter. Rolly, to me, in my view, is about a B minus to C plus level fighter. So I
yeah,
think that when it came to Crawford's wins, I like I said, I think he has about 4 good wins, but in terms of resume, I definitely can't put it over Canelo. In terms of accomplishments, I would probably have to put Canelo because you're talking about a guy that's one weight division champion over him, and they're both unified in certain weight classes. And I think the resume clearly has to go to Canelo because
yeah.
Canelo.
I'll give you that. I'll give him the better resume for sure.
Mhm, okay, okay. All right. Well, I'm trying to think overall what else we could talk about on the stream because that pretty much is almost getting to the end of it here. And this might go a little bit off topic, man, but I'll ask you your opinions about the Ryan Garcia Devin Haney situation, and then if you want, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Um. Well, yeah. I picked Ryan, and like a lot of people are making excuses talking about the weight and this and that, but at the weigh-in, first people were just, everything they were saying about Ryan, the whole build-up
Mm-hmm.
is he's mental, he pull out the fight, this and that and the other. There's no way he can beat Haney, blah, blah, blah. And then when he missed weight, everybody like, oh, he's undisciplined, he's untrained, he didn't take it serious. That's gonna get him stopped. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a negative
Mm-hmm.
before the fight, but after the fight, it became the reason he won. Oh, he had an advantage, this and that. Like, that's so hypocritical. Like,
Yeah.
he just beat him because I already said a lot of reasons why he beat him. They already knew each other from the amateurs. He wasn't afraid of his power. He knew he could catch him. He's always going to beat Devin Haney no matter what weight class is at, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's just everybody just switching up now, just riding with
Yeah.
Ryan, acting like they didn't say everything they said
No,
about
I
him.
agree with that.
You know?
Um, no, I definitely agree. And talking about the 3 pounds thing, you can say what you want basically afterwards about your opinion about the 3 pounds. But I don't think I think the 3 pounds probably was a factor. I think it made Ryan Garcia feel physically better and have a mental edge. But I
Yeah.
don't think that it made the performance as dominant as what it was. I think that Haney is a guy where clearly in his last fight he made 140 fine and he was full of energy. So when people go on this narrative basically stating that Ryan Garcia cheated, you can say that it was a little bit of an edge if you wanted to, but I don't think I can go as far to state that it was cheating. And Haney, once again, this also has to be stated because Crawford and Canelo, this has never happened anything like them. They have never fought a
Right.
fighter that was just knocked out in the biggest fight of his career last year. We don't know where he is mentally. He doesn't appear to have the same level of conditioning. And he's looked at as a guy that makes a lot of amateur mistakes. And Haney wasn't just beat, he was knocked down on like 3 or 4 separate occasions. So to me,
Yeah.
there's only so many excuses that I can make for Devin Haney when you're supposed to be looked at as one of the debatably top 5 pound for pound fighters in the world. And as Dante's Boxing Nation would state, allegedly one of the Michael Jordans of the sport.
Right. Yeah. What do you think about if Ryan and Tank fight at 144 with no clauses? Do you think it's a different fight?
um, I think Ryan may do a bit better, but I would not favor him over Tank. I think he makes too many amateur mistakes. I think that to be honest with you, he got a bit lucky with Devin Haney's lack of defense in that fight. I think he fought the right fighter. I think Tank is a little bit too skilled for him. But I don't think it would be at 144 anyway because I think Tank would probably have it a little bit. He knows Ryan Garcia's size, and I think he really felt his power in that first fight. So if it was at 144, it could be, but I doubt it. And personally, I would like to see Ryan Garcia against Isaac Pitbull Cruz or someone else overall like that. But yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But I'll watch the Tank fight though. But I would like to see him against one of those other champions too.
Hmm. No, yeah, for sure, man, for sure. All right. Well, I'm trying to think if there's really anything else you can bring up. Is there any more questions that you have about the Canelo Charlo Crawford situation? If not, then we can pretty much leave it here. And it was nice for you to tune in.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I picked Canelo to win that Charlo fight too, by the way.
Oh
So
yeah, me too.
I picked Benavidez to beat Boo Boo Andrade. So like my picks are based off boxing, not nationality. So you know how these
Yeah, no,
fans are.
same
I
here,
don't
man.
I don't choose like that. But I get a lot of fights right. And I got Wilder knocking out Zhang. Who you got in that fight?
Oh boy. No, that's a great card actually, because you have Better B versus Beevil. That's the hardest fight to predict. Zhang versus Wilder. Hmm. Um, I need to see Wilder more active. I don't really know what version I'm going to see. I think that he completely fought the wrong strategy in the Joseph Parker fight. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Wilder's a complete brawler, and I think that if he's going to beat someone, that he has to throw consistently and really threaten somebody. And Zhang is a guy to where he doesn't have great stamina, but he has excellent power and size. So if Wilder does not throw in that fight, and if Zhang is able to catch him, he can hurt him very badly in that fight. So right now, I might slightly favor Zhang, but that fight is really going to go either way. I need to see what version of Wilder is going to come out, honestly. So that's my view on that.
Yeah, I was just the last thing I'm gonna say. The reason I picked Wilder because Wilder, well, after the fight, I really like besides the Akash, whatever that's called.
Hmm.
That and just him being late, having a layoff. He didn't have his killer instinct. But he said taking that loss, even though he didn't take a lot of damage, he realized that he can't only train when it's time to fight. He
Yeah.
started getting back in the gym every day. It gave him what he needed back. So I feel like he gonna be who he normally is when he come into that fight because he got something to prove. So that's why I'm taking Wilder.
I really hope so. Yeah, I definitely understand that point for sure. But yeah, man. All right, yeah. I think that's really about it overall for this. Yeah, man. If you, I might respond to some comments here overall. But yeah, man. If that's pretty much your whole piece, man, then yeah, good to have you here. And then yeah, you can peace out, and I'll respond to some comments here if you want, bro. And if you want to tune in another time, feel free.
For sure. And yeah, nice talking to you, man. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me. Yeah, I'll be checking out your channel now. I'm glad we got to talk
yeah.
through some of these things. And I'm gonna go in the chat while you respond and just listen in. But I'll be around. I'm gonna check out your videos
All
too.
right, bro. Awesome. Well, thanks for debating me. Of course, it was a respectful debate, so no problem with it whatsoever, man. Yeah, good luck in whatever you're doing, man. Awesome. And yeah, I'll see you some other time.
All right, peace.
Peace out. All right, so let me try to respond to some comments here. Boy, there's a lot. I did not expect this many, but let me take a look. All right. The LDBC lost Wilder, Spence, and now Devin Haney. Well, the LDBC, they actually sometimes have been a little bit against Devin Haney or Tank, depending on the situation. But I agree. No, they're 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 not doing extraordinarily well right now. Let's see. Let's take a look. Uh, None wanted to see Charlo. No one wants to see Canelo versus Crawford either. Well, I do somewhat agree overall with the point overall that that Canelo would get a little bit more criticism, no doubt about it. So that's why I kind of talked about that. Let me see if um Crawford gets cooked by the elites at 160 to 168. End of story. He's better retiring at 147 to 154. Um, well, that's really the question because I really don't know if there's many elites at 160 anymore. I mean, you have Lara, and Lara used to be one of my favorite fighters, but I don't think he's really elite anymore. Um, Janabek would be a very tough fight. Like if Crawford beat Janabek, I would be surprised because there would be a size advantage, and that dude can really box, and his power is devastating. That would be like if Crawford beat Janabek, I think that Canelo would have no choice but to take that. Let's see. I give Bud higher chance 154 undisputed. I think that if he actually became undisputed at 154, then Canelo would really seriously look at it. Let's see. Did Garcia versus Haney really do 1.5 million pay-per-view buys? Honestly, man, I have no idea. If it did, that's crazy. I did not expect it to do that many pay-per-view buys if it did, but that just goes to show you also how big of a star Ryan Garcia is. Like for example, a lot of people said Tank clearly the face of boxing, because he got the 1.2 million pay-per-view buys, but Ryan was a big part of that. Of course, they're both great uh, stars, though. Let's see. Uh, to be honest, Canelo would have fought Benavidez back during his tear at 168, but he dropped out of contention when he was stripped. Actually, that's not the worst point in the world because there was a couple of times where Benavidez lost a title, once because of cocaine, and once I believe because he missed weight. So actually, one could argue that Benavidez kind of screwed up his own opportunity. But I will say that in my view, Canelo could be trying harder to make that fight. I'm not going to necessarily state that he's ducking Benavidez completely yet, but I do think that he realizes the threat of what Benavidez is. I don't mind him asking for the payday, though, honestly. Let's see. Uh, Canelo rejected Errol Spence fight from Al Heyman, but he said it was pointless. Honestly, I don't remember, but I do know that Errol Spence versus Canelo, in my view, do great in Texas. That was another part of the reason why I think that Fundura also wanted to fight Spence next. I don't really have a problem with that either. Let's say. Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Let's see. Experts picked Haney to wash Garcia. Bud's best performance was against a wash Spence. Keep it a buck. Well, just in my personal view, Spence, I'm not going to say that he was washed. Now, the year layoff, I think that it definitely made him rusty. But to say that he was washed, I'm not going to quite agree with that. What I will state is that if you have these standards for Canelo allegedly fighting a washed GGG at 36, or if you're going to be doing this, then you would have to kind of use the same thing for Crawford. But personally, I never was one to really state that because he looked so good in his last fight against Yordenis Ugas. Broke his orbital eye bone, actually, broke his eye socket. Let's see. Um, Crawford stops Canelo. I mean, you never know, but I just think that Canelo would. I think that he would have too good of a chin. I think that it would be too powerful and too just too smart in my view. Just too big and just in terms of weight. Now Crawford can make it interesting because of his length. He's actually lengthier than Canelo, but I think that Canelo would be too big and just too skilled. Um, let's see. 5'7". Canelo didn't get credit for the weight bully Charlo. Of course, he ain't getting credit for old ass, but I somewhat agree with that. At least from a lot of these channels, for sure. And that's also another point, and overall, apparently someone wanted to join real quick. Hold on one sec. Let me see. Hello?
Hey, how's it going, Boxing
Yeah,
Realist?
it was going up, bro.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, a lot of people were saying that Ryan Garcia cheated because of the whole weight thing.
Yeah.
But I watched the Regis Prograis interview like just today. Regis said that he basically cheated in his fight because he heard that like Devin Haney was trying to use IVs to like balloon up before his fight and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and he came in way heavier than he was supposed to.
That's
So
actually crazy.
yeah, Regis said that he basically got his karma for what he did to him.
I mean, I want to be. I won't like if I haven't seen it myself or if it's not like a confirmed report. I won't. I won't say it's for sure, but I know what you mean. Either way, what I'll state is this: I can't state that the 3 pound advantage for Ryan Garcia because it's not like he came in 6 or 8 pounds overweight like Jamal Charlo. Thing is, for me, is that when it comes to Devin Haney, that guy rehydrates heavier than a welterweight. He rehydrates to 165. And I know people are going to say that he was that much more drained and that, he was able to walk through his shots, but Haney looked perfectly fine in his last fight to me against Regis Prograis. So
Yeah.
to me, that's not really a viable excuse at all. And once again, Ryan is a dude to where he made a lot of amateur mistakes. So Haney should have been able to pretty easily win that fight, in my view. So yes, I agree with you. It's not a viable excuse, but the Regis Prograis thing, I'd have to see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And then
But yeah.
the whole turning the back thing, it is kind of like weird. Demetrius Johnson was talking about it too. That it's kind of like a loophole in boxing.
Mhm.
But if Ryan were to go against like a fighter like Terence Crawford or Boots Ennis, they would exploit that to the maximum.
Oh
'Cause all
yeah.
you have to do is change the angle and
Yeah.
just start throwing like left hands.
I agree with that. That's why, like I reviewed a couple of videos by Dante, and he stated, I think Ryan's going to go up to 147 and fight Boots. If you're Oscar De La Hoya, I don't know why you take that fight right now. Ryan he's still one of the bigger stars in the world. He was coming into this fight, but a lot of people thought it was going to be ended. Why would you want Ryan Garcia just to go up to 147 and fight a monster like Jaron Boots-Ennis, who's bigger and he's better in my view as a fighter than what Devin Haney is. So in my view, that fight would make no sense. If you're Oscar right now, in my view, you put him in either against a couple tune-ups or you put him in there against Cruz or Subriel Matias, someone like that. You don't put him at the welterweight division right now, especially against Jaron Boots-Ennis. That fight makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about him fighting Shakur?
Ryan Garcia fighting Shakur.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting fight. I think Shakur is going to need a little bit more experience. I think that he's the better boxer than Ryan, but Shakur, Many people call Devin Haney pillow-fisted. Devin Haney, in my view, has about B grade level power. Shakur might actually be an example of what a pillow-fisted fighter is, or at least a fighter that does not have great power, because Haney's power at least transferred a little bit to 140. Crawford's power was always there, but it even got better once he started moving up, which I mean, well, that also might have to do with the snack program, but we'll talk about that another time. But
Yeah.
overall, yeah. But Shakur Stevenson, he I've not seen a power transfer whatsoever unless he can completely tee off on the opponent and they're somewhat 130 or less. I don't think he has that level of power. So Shakur can outbox Ryan. But the question is that if Ryan can actually walk him down and if he's smart enough, can Shakur actually deal with that? Because Shakur, to be honest with you, I don't really know how good he's going to be moving up the weight divisions. So yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I was originally I thought Shakur had more power than Haney, but I saw one clip where he's just like throwing hella punches at this dude. And that dude just wasn't dropping, but the ref ended up stopping it. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to
He
remember
was
like
he
what.
was throwing tons of punches at the guy, but the ref stopped it.
Are you
But it
talking
was
about in one of Regis Prograis fights?
no, it was oh wait, what did I say? No, Shakur was throwing a bunch of punches at some opponent, and the guy wasn't like dropping or getting stunned or anything, but the fight was so one sided. It was like the ref stopped it just to end,
Mm,
like the one sided fight.
okay. I honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't see it. But I would have to take a look at it in all honesty. But yeah, I mean it's possible. Obviously, some referees are not sometimes they're not as good as what they should be. That's actually another point I want to bring up real quick. That referee, in my view, and I'm not a person to complain about referees, but that referee, in my view, Harvey Dock in that Garcia Haney fight, I don't think he did a good enough job, especially in the seventh round. I thought that Haney got knocked down at least one more time within that seventh round. Because when you get hurt and you're holding your opponent and the opponent backs up and they're not doing anything to make you slip and your legs wilt with beneath you, I think that should have been a clear knockdown. I thought that Harvey Dock, even usually for as good a referee as he is, I thought he did a poor job within that fight.
I agree. I counted 5 knockdowns.
5 knockdowns? Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't blame you. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else we could really bring up about it. But yeah, man, if you have anything else to bring up or overall comment about it, yeah, feel free. Because
What
yeah,
do you
that's all.
what do you think about Ryan Garcia fighting someone like Barrios?
I
I
think that
think
that's
that'd be a
a
fire
fight
fight.
that makes sense, but I think that if I'm Oscar, I'm not really putting him in the ring against someone at 147 at the moment, unless I plan to keep him at 147. That's a great fight, but unless Marios moves down, I think I don't see a reason overall why that fight needs to happen right now. I think that you make Ryan Garcia a champion and make him more marketable. I don't see any reason to put him in the ring against 147 pounders right now and risk
Mm.
his career against bigger fighters when he clearly still has some stuff to fix. So I think if I'm Oscar right now, I'm putting him in the ring against Arnold Barbosa next. I'm putting him in the ring against Isaac Pitbull Cruz. I'm putting him in the ring against, some other guys like that, Subriel Matias. Those are the fights that I'm looking at next. I'm not even looking at 147 right now. But Barrios, that would be a great fight. It's a fight that definitely would make sense.
The reason I say that is because it doesn't seem like Ryan wants to try to even make 140.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
hmm
Like he definitely could. He's just I guess he'd rather drink.
Yeah, no, that was also another point I brought up too. I don't think Ryan Garcia was in the best of conditioning for the Haney fight. He was breathing very heavily. That was another point. I think that if he really if it was a title fight, that he really thinks overall that he 100% can win. Because I think he was nervous against Haney. I think he'd probably try to make it. I think that he purposely did that against Haney. I think he can make it. I just think that he didn't want to for the Haney fight to give himself a slight edge.
That makes sense.
All right. Well, actually, let me respond to a comment here. Why you think Tank should be in the pound for pound list if he's not the one who beat Haney? Well, Mr. Jose Martinez, that's an interesting question. But Devin Haney was within my top 10, actually, debatably my top 5 pound for pound. But Haney just lost to the guy that's never won a belt before and that Tank recently beat and knocked out within 7 rounds. Now, that was at a catch weight, but Ryan Garcia had only fought one fight at 140. So, in my view, it wasn't that big of a stipulation. And of course, Ryan just recently came from 135 before that fight happened. Tank has always been debatably within my top 15 anyway, because now he is a two-weight division champion. He has defeated maybe about two-weight grade fighters, and he's extremely talented. But the question is that what fighters do you necessarily put over him right now? Before it was easier for me to say that he wasn't on my top 10 pound per pound because you had fighters like Tio and Devin Haney. Right now, I'm not quite sure if either of those fighters are above him because Tio, I thought, did not win his last fight. clearly. And obviously, Devin Haney shit the bed against Ryan Garcia. So that's the question. Because then when you talk about other top 15 pound per pound fighters, you're talking about Lomachenko. Can you really put Lomachenko right now above Tank? After he recently lost to Devin Haney, controversially, but still ended up losing, and just some other fighters. So I would like to see your top 10 pound per pound list, honestly, if you can come up with one. But I understand the question.
Do you think Tank could go past 140? Because Tank is like he's kind of fat even at
Yeah.
35.
Yeah, he's let me get my laptop a little bit closer here.
Because he's probably like what 5'4.5". He has a 67-inch arm reach.
Yeah, I think he's about 5'6". Javante Tank Davis. Javante Tank Davis, he's almost a little bit built like Canelo, to the point to where like they're not really natural 140 to 147 pounders for Javante, and Canelo's not really a natural 168 pounder. Now he rehydrates a bit heavier because he's thicker, he's a bit girthier, but I think to answer your question, Javante, he can go past 140, but it's going to have to be, in my view, against a fighter that's not on the caliber of Duran Boots Ennis or Terence Bud Crawford. Because if he
Yeah.
runs into one of those guys, in my view, it's just going to be too big a differential. Now, if it's someone like Mario Barrios grabbing a title, then yeah, he can win a title there. But it's going to be kind of like the Roy Jones and John Ruiz situation where he kind of beat the weakest champion there. So he can do it, but it's going to be risky because Javante, as skilled a fighter as he is, he's got a little bit of a disadvantage with his height and reach. But yeah, he could.
Okay. You think he could beat someone like a Keith Thurman?
At the moment, possibly, because I don't really know where Keith Thurman is, and that man has more injuries than Anthony Davis. So, to be honest with you, it wouldn't shock me. And Keith Thurman also is not strong to the body. I think that had it been a prime Keith Thurman, I would have been more worried. But that right now, honestly, may be a 50-50 fight, just because I don't know where Keith Thurman is at right now. So yeah, that would be tough, honestly. But yeah. Yeah, bro. But yeah, feel free to ask any other questions. By the way, some people are confused overall by the title. This first off was this first off was started with the Canelo Crawford conversation. Now it's turned more into a Ryan Garcia Devin Haney conversation. But feel free to ask any questions. But yeah, feel free to ask any more questions, bro, if you have any.
Uh, I'm not sure if this is like confirmed or not, but is Bivol and Bitterby fighting soon?
Oh no, yeah, they are. They're fighting in June,
Oh man,
and
who do you got?
Man, that really, in all honesty, is the hardest fight to predict of all year, because I think that they
Yeah,
have the perfect styles to beat each other. Bivol is a guy that moves around a lot. He's also got enough power to possibly push Better Beef back. The question that I want to see is who's going to push who back, because whoever submits first, in my view, is going to end up losing that fight. Because Bivol, he probably can fight on the back foot a bit better, but Better Beef is a guy that tries to break you down over time. Bivol, in my view, to be successful over Better Beef, he's going to have to try to push him back or keep his respect in the middle of the ring. If Better Beef is able to push him up against the ropes, Bivol, in my view, is going to get broken down over time. So right now, to be honest with you, it's super hard. I haven't taken a look at the film because I've kind of went back and forth on it. Uh, Maybe Better Beef, just because at times you can get Bivol to throw a little bit less. But if Bivol throws enough in that fight, I may pick Bivol. That's a really tough fight, honestly, to predict.
yeah, I got Better Beef too. I think
Yeah.
Better Beef might be able to stop him.
Oh yeah, no, all his fights have went by knockout so far. So yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Let's see. Someone said thoughts on Benavidez versus Vosdick. I think that it's not the worst fight, but I also don't think it's an elite fight. I think Vosdick is a guy that was broken by Better Beef a while ago. He's just recently came back. He hasn't been in the ring against any elite fighters ever since. I think that Benavidez breaks him down more than likely, at least wins by dominant decision. We're going to see truly how great Benavidez actually is once he finally possibly gets in the ring with someone like a Better Beef or Bivol, because those guys are extremely skilled in his own same size. Those are the guys that Benavidez is going to have to prove himself against. Vosdick he's been done for years. Better Beef, once he tears these guys up, they're almost never the same. So he just has monstrous power. But yeah.
did you hear that Benavidez used to beat? I don't know if he used to beat him up, but he used to.
But Bivol, yeah.
Yeah,
I heard that he used to hold his own. I never heard that he used to beat Bivol up. I think that if that was out there, then it was because I actually watched an interview. Benavidez stated that, and this is also another reason why I wanted to state, because like when people stated that Canelo fought Dimitri Bivol, they were like, oh, Bivol isn't that powerful of a puncher. It's not that he's not a powerful puncher, because if you listen to Benavidez in that interview, he says he's got like Gennady Golovkin type of power. He can really hit, but it's his type of style. Benavidez, I think, was still probably getting beaten sparring by Bivol, but I think that he was holding his own. So that'd be an interesting fight, because that would also be opposing styles. And Bivol has the potential to really push back Benavidez in that fight. But no, I don't think I ever heard about Benavidez beating up Bivol in sparring. And even if I did, sparring is sparring. Like, I remember when Dante, I reviewed his videos, and he was claiming all this stuff about how Fury was afraid of Dillian White because in sparring, allegedly, he knocked him out. Sparring is sparring, so even if you see someone sparring, it's not always what's going to happen in the professional fight. But yeah, from what I heard, Benavidez held his own, but he didn't beat up Bivol.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I heard. What's up, everyone? Yeah, what's up, bro? Yeah, what's up, everyone? Overall in this chat, I love the appreciation you all have shown me, and for those of you that have tuned into the live stream, I'll post overall the link again real quick. If any of y'all want to join, then feel free. Unless Riggs, do you have any more questions, man? Because you can stay on as long as you like.
I don't know if I have another question. I think I had one, but I lost it.
Nah, it's okay, bro. It's okay. It's cool.
Oh, how do you see Usyk versus Fury turning out?
I have Fury. If he comes up in the best shape, I think that Fury. I think Fury more than likely. I just think he's going to be too big and too skilled. But I need to see where he's at. In his last fight in Ngannou, he didn't really look that good, and he has been in some wars. He's been in some wars now with Wilder a couple of times. So, and on top of that, I believe he's about 36. So I need to really see, because if Usyk just walks right through him, that'll tell me that Fury is not really at the same point in his career. At least if he just walks right through him and Fury just doesn't show great punch resistance. But right now I have Fury, but he is going to have to be very smart for that fight, because Usyk is a big, big threat. So I have Fury, but that's a fight that 60-40 in my view. That could go either way.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, actually. It's weird. It's like, even though I saw Fury kind of get like manhandled by Ngannou, I still think he's kind of like the top heavyweight.
Yeah, as do I. I think he just heavily underestimated Ngannou. Fury's always been a guy that fights to the level of his competition. Like, he looked like shit also against Otto Wallin, but then against Wilder, Klitschko, White, he always shows out and, wins the majority of the rounds. So Fury's just, one of those guys. And I expect similar to Usyk, but we'll see, because Usyk is Fury, in my view, in order to win that fight, he's really going to have to use his size and his power, and he's going to have to not be afraid to get in there against Usyk and really show his size and go to the body against Usyk. Because I think if he boxes too long in the mid-range, and if Usyk actually starts hitting him and outboxing him, Fury has to get out of that range. He has to try and really bother Usyk, because Usyk, although he's a good puncher, I don't think he's a great one for that weight class. And Fury, in my view, can take advantage of that. But he's going to have to. Fury is a pretty smart fighter, but we'll see, because this is going to be the biggest challenge of his career by far. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. What if AJ fought Fury? Who do you got?
I would more than likely have Fury. I need to see where Fury is at, but I'm not really biting on this thing about AJ, being better than Fury, like dominating Fury and all these other guys. I think that he's fought opponents that have made him look a little bit better overall than what he probably actually is. I think he's improved, but I think AJ still has some of the same issues that I've seen. He's made slight improvements, but I do still see the feet being a bit clunky. I do still see the head movement not all the way being there. If Fury is at the best form, like if he dominates Usyk or if he beats Usyk, I'd favor Fury. I'd say AJ, of course, has the power advantage over Fury, but I think Fury has basically everything else over AJ. So that's who I would favor in that fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's weird for me. I at a time I would have had. It's weird. It depends on what time it was for, like, if the
I
fight
know what you mean.
happened. Because it's like when AJ first started out, he was like going for knockouts, and when he stopped, was it Klitschko?
Yeah.
I always get Klitschko and Kovalev mixed up for some reason.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
When he stopped him, I was like, okay, he stopped someone that's pretty damn big and someone who likes to, fight. He likes to take the air out the ball, and like all that bull crap. And it's hard to knock out people like that.
No.
So, like, at that time, I was
sure.
like, okay, he probably beats Fury. But then when he lost to Ruiz and he lost to Usyk, I'm like, he probably loses. But when I saw him against Ngannou, he had that look in his eye, like he wants to, like, really like hurt people again, if that makes
That
sense.
was one of the more interesting actually changes. Sorry not to interrupt you there, but
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up this point overall because actually this little triangle to like for well there's probably more elite heavyweights than just Wilder, Fury, and AJ within the past. Of course, now there's Usyk, there was Klitschko and Ruiz. You can even add a couple others, but this started actually like damn near 10 years ago when AJ Anthony Joshua first was on the scene. And when I first seen him, of course, I was quite a bit younger now. I'm 26 right now. I was a teenager when I first started watching him. But I thought he was going to clearly be the best heavyweight in the world. And eventually he kind of became that. But Fury, of course, he was on that little layoff because of his depression. Some people, of course, say the steroids as well, whatever you want to believe. But thing is that Fury came back against Wilder. I did not believe he would beat Wilder. I thought he would have a chance, but I thought he was out for too long. I thought kind of almost like the same thing for the Ryan Garcia thing. I didn't know where he was. So the fact that he came back and beat Wilder, that really was somewhat unexpected overall for a certain amount of people, and that changed the landscape completely. And then of course Ruiz, when he beat Joshua, that really shook up the world. So the heavyweight division is really it's really been like a hot potato. It's been really back and forth. So the opinions have changed because Wilder, unexpected things have happened to him, unexpected things happen to Fury and AJ. The heavyweight division, in my view, even though a lot of people criticize it, in my view, it's been great for entertainment within really the past decade. I think that it's been great between the three of those guys.
Mhm.
But yeah. Let's see. You versus IBFP debate. Nah, bro, we've never debated. I've never talked to him, but yeah, maybe one day, bro. It'd be nice. But yeah. But yeah, man. I think I'm gonna end the live stream for right now. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. It was great talking to y'all. Yeah, good to talk to you, Riggs. Good to talk to you. To the other guy that I talked to. Yeah, man. If y'all want to do a video where I respond to y'all's comments or something like that, or another live stream, feel free overall to comment that down in this chat below. If y'all want me to do another live stream at a particular time to answer y'all's questions, feel free because I don't mind doing that. But anyways, good to talk to you, Riggs. Good to talk to everyone else who joined, man. That's pretty much about it for right now. Thank y'all so much.
All right. Cool. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no.
Definitely do more of these too. These are pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, awesome, bro. Thank you. All right. Well, peace out, y'all. Thank y'all so much.